What's going on, guys? So originally I was going to have a dedicated unboxing and first impressions video on each iPad, but since the iPad Air and the regular iPad are so similar, I decided let's just do it in one video. And you know who's happy about that? Our sponsor. Nobody. I understand that this iPad has already been released. It's just at a lower price point because, believe it or not, I'm actually using an iPad 8th generation, and this one is pretty dated, I would say. And it might be due for me to have an upgrade. So without further ado, let's get into the unboxing. So we have to give credit where credit is due, and both of these were designed by Apple in the beautiful country of California. But the product was made in China. Don't let that fool you. It's funny how people think I have some type of stigma towards China whenever I say the product is made in China. I don't at all. It's just I actually want to give credit where credit is due, and the product just so happens to be made in China. So this is the regular iPad. Probably makes sense to have the more expensive option be on the right-hand side, right? All right, so in terms of the unboxing experience, they are both pretty much identical. We probably have, ooh, I'm actually surprised on this one. So there is a braided cable on both options here, which is great. And the power adapters are also still exactly the same, so not too bad. I'm leaving the USB-C cables in there because I have a full box of cables at this point in the process of moving. All right, so here is the iPad Air. Like so. And then the regular iPad. On the surface, you probably can't tell a difference, but there is a pretty big dead giveaway on which one is which, and it comes from the regular iPad not having any type of anti-reflective coating, and the glass is not laminated as well. I'll show you that when I turn it on, so let me go ahead and do that. But when the displays are off, the iPad Air is noticeably darker. In terms of weight, because this is called the iPad Air, it is definitely lighter than the regular iPad. This one just feels more of like a concrete slab. This one just feels like a concrete slab. It's just hollow in the middle, if that makes sense. All right, so let's go ahead and get into both of these devices here. All right, I'm pretty zoomed in here, and I think this part of the video is gonna be pretty important, so I would tell you guys to really focus in on this if you're trying to know the difference between the regular iPad and the iPad Air, because once again, it might look like the same iPad on the surface in terms of the design, but trust me, those differences do make a noticeable difference, and there is a reason why this iPad is $350 now. All right, so this is the iPad. There is no ProMotion or the 120 hertz that we get on the iPad Pro models, so do keep that in mind. The other thing is the camera is on the long part of the device, which is great. But let's look around the device itself. So we have the marking that this is just a regular iPad on the back. That's not the thing we should care about the most. The volume rocker is on the right-hand side. The top portion has our Touch ID button, and then we have the stereo speakers on both sides, and this has USB-C. There is no Thunderbolt on either devices, so do keep that in mind. And then the smart connector is on the right side as well. My bad, left side. So the Magic Keyboard that you're able to just dock and use your iPad like a laptop or a MacBook, you will not be able to do that because the connectors are on the side. You can only use those Smart Folio keyboards, which do work to some extent, but the proper Magic Keyboard that folds in, has the USB-C pass-through and all that stuff by Apple is probably one of the best experiences that you can get. And that's pretty much it for the device itself. Oh, forgot to mention that it has the camera system on the back. We just have one single camera, good enough for most things. But now let me talk about the iPad Air. And this is where the differences are going to start. So in terms of the design itself, oops, I just locked it. Does have Touch ID, you just tap it on the bottom and then you're able to go in. But the camera is still on the same side where it's on the long side of the device. Let me flip the display over so it looks a little bit better. We do have Touch ID on the top with our stereo speakers as well on both sides. Do keep in mind this also does not have Thunderbolt capabilities. It's just a regular USB-C port. So if you're expecting to dock this into a Thunderbolt dock, you won't be able to do that on the iPad Air. The rest of the device is pretty much the same except for some other features. So you'll notice here we have the volume rocker, but we have this spacing here. This is the magnetic part for the Apple Pencil USB-C version and also the new Apple Pencil Pro. So that would go here on this side. The regular iPad does not have that functionality. And then on the other side, it's just clean as day. I also forgot to mention on the iPad Air, there is no Pro Motion either. It's still just running that 60 Hertz. So that's one of the shortcomings of the iPad Air compared to the Pro models, but it is what it is. For $600, I would expect to see Pro Motion on this device. Moving along, the most important thing that you need to know between both these devices are the displays themselves. Right off the bat, I'm not sure if the camera is going to be able to pick this up, but this does not have the laminated glass and the anti-reflective coating that the other iPad models have. And this, I would say, would make this iPad seem like the traditional iPad, where it's really an iPad that you would only use indoors. Like, I would not take this out the house just because of the lack of the anti-reflective coating and the color space that it has, the regular sRGB color profile. It's just not the greatest thing to look at when you're outdoors. Indoors, it looks fine, but outdoors, not the greatest experience. The iPad Air, on the other hand, has a P3 wide gamut color profile, so the colors are much richer. It's able to be more accurate for the colors that you're working with. Hopefully the camera can pick this up, but I want you guys to look at the side of the iPad here and tell me if you're able to see like the different layers of the glass that make up the display. So you can see that there's like some ridges and it's not fully flush. But when I go over to the iPad Air, the colors are much richer and the blacks are much blacker as well. Hopefully the camera can pick this up, but just notice how everything just seems to be on almost one unified panel. So I'm definitely getting a bit nerdy here, but for the long term, trust me, it's going to be better to pick up the iPad Air over the regular iPad for that in its particular space. So I know I'm sticking here with the display a lot, but this is one of the biggest differences between the two. Let me open up Procreate and just open up a not regular, but one of the demo examples that they have. And right away, I believe you can tell on the camera, the colors on the iPad Air are it just blows the regular iPad out the water. And don't even get me started when I go over to the iPad Pro with the new tandem OLED that it has. But this is what I'm talking about. With the sRGB, there's just this white cast over the entire screen versus the richness that you get with the iPad Air. All the things that you're looking for are there. So let me go to another example shot. This is probably one of my favorites. Notice how everything just seems to be, like the brightness and the contrast is just really high on the iPad. But when I go over to the iPad Air, things are much richer, more natural, more vivid. And that's what you might be looking for when it comes to the iPad Air. Almost forgot to add that last part. Let me go to this next one here. It's clear as day. Which one is better? Clear as day. Even if I were to zoom in here, hopefully I can zoom in the same spot. I mean, the picture speaks for themselves. This looks good, by the way. And then last but not least, the petals. I mean, just look at the roses. Look at that. Look at that. I did not mean to do that, but hey, I'm not an artist. I'm just a YouTuber. But yeah, that is one of the biggest differences between them. And this is the reason why I'm zoomed in so much, because I don't think people would be able to see the differences between this if it's zoomed out that far. All right, so this is Photomator. Once again, just look at the differences between both of these iPads. It's not even close on which one you would say is a better, more true to life photo. It's the iPad Air, right? Just these are the differences that I'm talking about. All right, so let's go to YouTube real quick. These don't have HDR displays, but still just want to bring up a video and just see what the differences are. So let's just see if I can type at the same time here. The Pixel 8a, the 8, and the 7a. But you know what else we need to compare on this channel? Our sponsor, nobody. All right, so let's get these devices out the way. If you guys know me, the A series is my favorite series by Google. We gotta give credit where credit is due, and this was made in China. Let's go get the unboxing knife. So the speakers, I would say, are maybe slightly better on the iPad Air. I really can't tell a difference between the two. They sound pretty identical to me, but I'm hoping for a more expensive product that the speakers would be better. But from just a general listen in, they sound pretty much identical. The display, I've already shown you guys the display plenty of times, but the display looks much better for video viewing on the iPad Air. So keep that in mind if you're a person who wants to watch a lot of content. The iPad Air would be a better choice. All right, I could go into the camera, but I'm not gonna waste your guys' time. If you have a smartphone in your pocket, my suggestion would be to just snap it on your smartphone and then send it to the iPad. So I'll leave that camera department there. So now with the iPad starting at $350, does that make it a more compelling product to buy over the iPad Air now? And I would argue the answer is, yeah, it is. For 350 bucks, and this one's starting at 500 now, it's gonna be a bit harder to convince people to get the iPad Air over the iPad, but let me tell you who I think the target audience is for the regular iPad first. Like I said before when I was talking about the display till the sun was blue, or the moon is blue, or whatever the phrase is called, the iPad just seems like an iPad that should really only exist indoors or primarily for children. Other than that, I really don't see what the point of the entry-level iPad model is. Yes, it is cheaper, it has Touch ID, it's great, but other than that, it just doesn't seem like that great of an iPad now that the iPad Air exists. Now, if I go over to the iPad Air, this starts at $500, and this is an iPad I would say that is more than capable of being used indoors, outdoors, travel. This one can be used for travel, but that display, like I said before, just doesn't seem adequate enough to be combating the sun out in direct sunlight. But with this one, with a better color profile, the laminated glass, the anti-reflective coating, the M series processor, the ability to dock it with the Magic Keyboard, the ability to also use it with a pencil attached to the side versus the plug-in one over here. This iPad just seems like a more cohesive product that Apple is pushing towards for an iPad being more so like a computer or a laptop. Where this one, the regular iPad, is really just a tablet that you can draw on. So that is why I would say if you are in high school, college, or an adult, the iPad Air would be your entry-level model, and the regular iPad would be mainly for your kids. Believe it or not, the iPad is a pretty popular product for education purposes, and I would say for elementary school, I would toss a whole bunch of iPads in a classroom. But if I was in high school and things like that, I would probably want to give my kids a iPad Air or anything above that for education purposes. For people who run a business and they use the iPad as a kiosk, I've seen that a lot more lately. I believe Shake Shack has iPads, but they use iPad Pro.
What's the payoff? I mean, the cost to put one of these in compared to how much more a customer spends on the kiosk.
We do see a very nice lift off of the kiosk. And actually, this is not even, very fancy kiosk technology. It's an iPad.
Anyway, if you are running a business, definitely don't get an iPad because once again, like I say, when it comes to the display, this thing is just not gonna be up to par when it comes to the display. I think that might be the first thing that goes bad on this if you're running this outdoors for long periods of time versus the iPad Air or the other iPad models, other higher models. The iPad Air is going to be the one that is capable of beating it every single time. So with that being said, guys, hopefully that makes your life a little bit easier. I know I said I was going to do a quick comparison, but at this point, seems like this might be the dedicated video of the comparison between the iPad and the iPad Air. Hopefully that makes your decision easier. I think I probably already said that already, but yeah. Hopefully you enjoy the video. Appreciate every single sub, like, and comment. And as always, guys, much love. I'm still playing catch up. Cut me some slack. I'm catching up. The one thing I wish the iPad Air had was ProMotion. Like, this would be such a killer. But then the iPad Pro 11-inch wouldn't exist. Oh, forgot to mention, this does come in 13 inches. Probably should have had that somewhere when I was talking about the display for 5 minutes straight. What's going on? What's going on, guys? So, wait. What's going on, guys?